Greetings. This is the one you've known as Jesus the Christ. You only think you have more control than you do, and you want control, but wanting something doesn't equal having it or needing it. You have less control than you think and more than you need. In other words, you don't have much control and you don't need it. People are under the illusion that they can control things that they can't actually control. For instance, they think they can control how healthy they are by what they do for their bodies. However, your knowledge about the body is so limited that attempts to determine your health are also limited. So much of one's health is governed by subconscious processes and genes, which are not under your control. A lack of knowledge is not the only thing that stands in the way of greater control. Perfect knowledge would still not give you control. In addition to there being a higher will and a higher plan at work that trumps your own will, the nature of life is simply too complex to be controlled. Too many factors are influencing every outcome, most of which you can never be aware of or affect, for you to be in control. The few factors you are in control of will never be enough for you to be in control. When you seem to be in control, the factors you're in control of have simply won out over the others for the time being. Because the mix of factors and their strength is in constant flux, even when you think you are in control, or should be, it turns out you aren't. Life is full of surprises. This is not intended to discourage you from trying to get what you want, but only to help you see that you are not to blame when you don't get what you want. If you think you can control life and you aren't able to, the conclusion is often that you failed, that you are inadequate. Your failures to control life are taken personally. But more often than not, whatever you want was simply not meant to be, for one reason or another. It was not in the cards. Cards are an excellent metaphor for the complexity and unpredictability of life. However, cards are more random than life, since life has a plan and a guiding hand, grace. In life, you could say that the cards are rigged in favor of the house. In life, the factors that create any situation or event are like the cards that get played by various players involved. Because the players have free will, what card will be played is never known, until it is. Although certain cards are more likely to get played than others, you never know. Many factors influence what cards get played, and if a card gets played. Then whatever card is played determines the next card or cards that are played. The order in which the cards fall is everything. What came before can't help but influence what comes next. In life, many factors contribute to someone taking a certain action, and when, or not acting. Although people have free will, no one has that much control over even their own choices, given the power of conditioning and how easily influenced by others people are. People's choices are determined by both immediate factors, such as their thoughts and feelings and the influences around them, and by less immediate and direct factors going back in time. The vast array of factors involved in creating any situation are determined by many previous events and countless people with their various conditioning and perceptions, all of which are outside of not only your control, but other people's. The causes that shape any situation or event are impossible to pinpoint or enumerate, as essentially everything that ever happened throughout history contributed to the way things are, to the cards falling as they did. Can you create a certain outcome with your thoughts alone, as so many believe? If something went wrong, could it have been avoided by thinking more positively or by not thinking something? Possibly. But as just pointed out, one's thoughts are just one factor involved in the creation of reality. Nevertheless, thoughts definitely create your imaginary reality, your inner experience of reality. Reality seems and feels as you imagine it to be. For example, if you imagine it to be scary, then it seems and feels scary. Or if you imagine it to be good, it seems and feels good. But that doesn't mean that imagining reality the way you would like it to be will make it be that way. That would be fuzzy thinking. Your thoughts do matter. They just aren't responsible for creating all of reality. Thoughts color your experience of reality, and so also influence your choices and behavior. But thoughts don't single-handedly create reality. The world is not designed to comply to your thoughts about it. The fact that life occasionally does comply to your thoughts doesn't mean that life is meant to, or that you can make it comply through sheer discipline and will. This belief is the ego's fantasy, and for many a source of great suffering. There will come a time when humans will be evolved enough to manifest through thought alone, but that time is not in the immediate future for most. Spiritual masters and avatars have demonstrated this ability at times, but that doesn't mean just anyone is capable of this. In this case, practice does not make perfect. A certain purity of heart is necessary before the ability to manifest through thought alone is bestowed, and there is great wisdom, grace, in that gift not being given prematurely. One reason you believe you have more control over life than you actually do is simply because the ego wants more control. I want it to be this way, therefore it is. A belief in control stands in for actual control. This is a coping mechanism on the part of the ego, which helps quell its fears and distrust of life. The ego wouldn't need this delusion if it perceived life as it actually is, benevolent. It doesn't perceive the goodness, wisdom, love, and joy behind life. The ego is not connected to the truth about life, and therefore perpetuates and clings to its own falsehoods. It needs to tell itself lies to protect itself from its own lies. The lie of control is a supposed protection against the ego's fear that it won't survive unless it has control. And yet the truth is that you do not have much control, and you still survive quite well. In any event, even if more control were possible, that would not be the answer, because the ego, which is divorced from one's innate wisdom, simply doesn't know what choices will lead to a safe, secure, fulfilling, and happy life. It only pretends to know this. The ego has some functionality in terms of protecting people from immediate impending danger. But being as primitive as it is, that functionality is quite limited and incapable of guiding you in living a good life. Where you appear to have some control is in small choices. Even if you can't choose whether you'll get that job you applied for or who will fall in love with you, you can choose what you'll have for breakfast, for instance. However, if we look even at that choice more closely, how much control do you actually have over what you choose for breakfast? What is choosing your breakfast? Isn't it conditioning, including habits, preferences, and what you were taught about breakfast? If your conditioning is choosing your breakfast, are you really choosing it? Are you controlling even that? Who is this you that wants control and believes it has control? Can you find it? You think you decided to have oatmeal for breakfast, but wouldn't it be more accurate to say that deciding happened? Did it happen to anyone? You could say that it happened to your body-mind since it happened in relation to it, but you are certainly more than your body-mind. So if you're not your body-mind, then who is this you that deciding happens to? Is there even such a thing as a you that it is happening to, or is it more true to simply say that it is happening? I'm not suggesting you actually language things this way when speaking with others. That would be awkward. But it is useful to be aware of how inaccurately language depicts reality, and how language distances you from the truth about life. Another way of talking about this is that conditioning gets played out, and either you are aware of that conditioning being played out, or you think you're making choices. It's fine if it still feels like you're making choices. You're designed to be that way. You have an illusory you that seems to be making choices and having a life. But in truth, you are life, the divine, living itself out in the locality of your body-mind. Sometimes the divine lets the illusory you and its conditioning have its way, and sometimes the divine has its way and moves accordingly, if that is required. This happens more often than you probably realize. And so there is a perpetual dance, a back and forth, going on in your life between your free will, or your conditioning, and the will of the divine. This conditioning can get played out in many different ways. You might have oatmeal today and yogurt tomorrow. So that adds to the illusion of free will. Within the conditioning are many possible choices, and those are the cards you have to play. In any situation, everyone has many possible cards to play, many possible choices they might make, all of which are likely to fall within their conditioning. So life is by no means predetermined. That would only be the case if everyone had only one possible choice. Life is much more interesting than that. And yet control and choice are illusions, since conditioning is just playing out. You seem to be choosing, but it is more like certain probabilities are being played out that are connected to your body-mind and its conditioning. Something very interesting happens when you begin to wake up out of your conditioning. You discover the deeper truth about life. There is, and always has been, another force unfolding and determining your life besides the imaginary you and its conditioning. This force that is living you also entails many possibilities and is highly unpredictable. Once the existence of this force is realized, you can choose to align more with it instead of letting your conditioning run the show. What is this you that can choose this? Now that is truly mysterious. It is the divine in you waking up to itself. There is a mysterious force, a will that is taking everyone's life in a particular direction. There is a flow, a direction to everyone's life, and within that flow are many possibilities. Out of those possibilities or probabilities, a particular experience manifests. And yet, amidst this unpredictability and seeming randomness, the flow does have a direction, and something is determining that direction. That something has often been called thy will, which of course refers to God, the life force, or the intelligence behind all life. Thank you for being here. I am with you always.